Actor Jussie Smollett convicted of faking a hate crime, New York City's private sector vaccine mandate, and the U.S. boycotts the Beijing Winter Olympics. And more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. You've no doubt seen news reports about the smash and grab robberies that have been happening lately across California. Well, New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez expressed doubts about them, saying a lot of these allegations of organized retail theft are not actually panning out. I believe it's a Walgreens in California cited it, but the data didn't back it up. And what data is she referring to? No clue. But it's definitely not all this video evidence of organized retail theft actually panning out. Walgreens said these crimes have evolved beyond shoplifting and petty theft to the sale of stolen and counterfeit goods online. And Walgreens has the receipts to back this up. My question is, why is Cortez doubting crimes happening in California when she lives in New York? I live in New York and I believe they're happening. You know, because of the video evidence. The only thing I don't actually believe is happening west of here is Wyoming. Do you really believe Wyoming is real? Look at these beautiful landscapes. There's no way this place really exists. This isn't a state, it's a Bob Ross painting. Speaking of deepfakes, an alleged hate crime. Former Empire actor Jussie Smollett claimed in 2019 that two men in Chicago had beaten him up while yelling racist and homophobic slurs. It was caught on surveillance and brought him some notoriety. Celebrities and lawmakers rallied behind Smollett after the attack, including not yet President Joe Biden and AOC, who tweeted that this was a racist and homophobic attack and a hate crime. But this Thursday, a jury found Smollett guilty of staging the whole thing. Basically, he had hired the two guys to attack him and make it look like a hate crime. The jury found him guilty on 5 counts of disorderly conduct for lying to police. Although Smollett testified at his trial and told a very different story than the two men he allegedly hired, it appears the jury didn't believe him. His lawyer said he will appeal. He could face up to 3 years in prison or worse, community service. Now, worst of all, the damage to his career, because the whole thing shows Jussie Smollett is just not a very good actor. At least the good news is, this was one surveillance video that AOC did believe was real. And in AOC's home city of New York, Mayor Bill DeBlasio announced a vaccine mandate for all private sector employees. This mandate will go into effect on December 27th, just a few days before DeBlasio leaves office. DeBlasio said, "We in New York City have decided to use a preemptive strike to really do something bold to stop the further growth of COVID and the dangers it's causing to all of us." Well, that's bold, all right. Imposing a mandate similar to President Biden's that just got repealed in the Senate. De Blasio's mandate would affect 3.7 million New York City workers and leave everyone scrambling to implement the mandate just as de Blasio leaves office. This is the political equivalent of farting as you exit an elevator. De Blasio says the vaccine mandate is intended to fight the Omicron COVID variant. Meanwhile, Pfizer announced their vaccine booster offered protection against Omicron, even though the initial 2 doses of the vaccine showed less efficacy against this new COVID strain. Now, you might think their preliminary results are a bit suspect, since the Omicron variant is still so new, and since booster shots are a great reason for Pfizer to sell more vaccines. And also because the FDA told a judge this week that they would need 75 years to fully release data on the Pfizer vaccine. But, on the bright side, I've learned that whenever I make a claim, I can take as much time as I want to back it up. For example, did you know I once dated Scarlett Johansson? Back when I was the #1 ranked shuffleboard player in Delaware. I can totally prove it. Just give me 75 years. A spokesperson for incoming Mayor Eric Adams said he will evaluate this mandate and other COVID strategies when he is in office and make determinations based on science, efficacy, and the advice of health professionals. which is political speak for we're going to do whatever we want and cherry-pick data that backs us up. In the meantime, employees in the private sector will need to provide proof they've received at least one dose of the vaccine. A negative COVID test won't be enough for this mandate. Luckily, this mandate won't affect employees of the most classic business in New York City, selling watches out of suitcases on the street. I'm pretty sure those watches are stolen, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doubts that. More after the break. Welcome back. The White House announced it would stage a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing over China's human rights abuses.
U.S. diplomatic or official representation would treat these games as business as usual in the face of the PRC's egregious human rights abuses and atrocities in Xinjiang, and we simply can't do that.
Good for America. I know some people don't think a diplomatic boycott is enough, but one step at a time, folks. Next step, boycott sending all of our money to China too. U.S. athletes, however, will still be going to the Beijing Olympics. Yes, this is the image we're using to represent U.S. athletes. Curling is my favorite sport.
I don't think that we felt it was the right step to penalize athletes who have been training, preparing for this moment, and we felt that we could send a clear message by not sending an official U.S. delegation.
This means, though, that the U.S. is sending its athletes to a country that commits constant human rights abuses, a country where a former Olympic tennis player has been disappeared, and besides the threat to their safety, the U.S. curling team is in danger of losing, since no one is better than China at sweeping, specifically atrocities under the rug. Canada, the UK, and Australia have also joined in this diplomatic boycott. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said this boycott seriously violates the principle of political neutrality of sports established by the Olympic Charter and runs counter to the Olympic motto, More United. Yeah, way to ruin the spirit of the Games. Boycotting an Olympics just because they're being hosted in a country participating in ethnic cleansing? What would Hitler think? China has continually denied claims of human rights abuses, even though there's video evidence of them taking place. Maybe they're just deepfakes, like Wyoming. Zhao also said, the U.S. will pay a price for its practices. You may stay tuned for follow-ups. Now that's how you get someone on your side. Threats! Hey Grandma, how did you and Grandpa meet? Well, I didn't want to go out with him at first, but then he said I'd pay a price if I refused, and we've been together ever since. Please help? Speaking of dangerous places, Instagram. Instagram revealed parental controls intended to keep children safe on their platform. The social media giant made this announcement on Tuesday because Instagram cares. That the head of the company, Adam Mosseri, faced a congressional hearing on Wednesday over the app's potential negative effect on young users. That's like starting your big school project the night before it's due, which, appropriately enough, is a situation that causes teens almost as much stress and anxiety as being on Instagram. These parental controls allow children's caretakers to keep track of and set limits on the amount of time teens spend on Instagram, because that will help teens feel better. I'm already sad enough when I realize how many hours a week I spend on Instagram. If my mom also knew, that'd send me into a full-blown crippling depression. I just pray she doesn't also learn how many thirst traps I post. And after the break, gerrymandering. Welcome back. The Department of Justice is suing Texas over new electoral maps drawn up by Republicans, alleging it violates the Voting Rights Act. Attorney General Merrick Garland said, the complaint that we filed today alleges that Texas violated Section 2 by creating redistricting plans that deny or abridge the rights of Latino and Black voters to vote on account of their race, color, or membership in a language or minority group. Fox News asked if the DOJ planned on cracking down on Democrat-controlled states, such as Maryland and Illinois, which also suffer from extreme gerrymandering. They declined to comment. I say we should make a rule. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If your district is drawn in such a way that it looks like someone breaking their neck during a hot yoga class, then you have to redraw it in a shape that a preschooler could name. Speaking of shady figures using underhanded tactics to stay in power, Vladimir Putin. On Tuesday, President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin had a 2-hour video call. The main topic of discussion was Ukraine. Biden threatened severe economic sanctions on Russia should they invade Ukraine. Putin asked that the NATO military alliance not expand to include Ukraine. The Kremlin said Putin emphasized that it's wrong to put the responsibility on Russia, since it is NATO that has been making dangerous attempts to expand its presence on the Ukrainian territory and has been expanding its military potential near Russian borders. Putin said Russia will submit security proposals to the U.S. next week for consideration in regards to its plans surrounding Ukraine. I assume those plans are essentially, can I has Ukraine? Russia deployed 70,000 troops along the Ukrainian border. Ukrainian officials also accused Russia of sending tanks and snipers to provoke return fire and give Russia an excuse to invade. While this sounds bad, on the bright side, at least now we're living in an era where dictators are looking for good excuses to invade. A few decades ago, the only excuse they needed was, well, it's a Tuesday, so why not? That's progress. And how did Ukraine respond to all these growing tensions? With a meme on its official Twitter page. They're making jokes in the face of impending doom. That's offensive, mainly because making jokes in the face of impending doom is my job. Stay in your lane, Ukraine. So for those of you keeping score, the U.S. threatened Russia over their threats to Ukraine, and China is threatening the U.S. The Earth is on the brink of conflict erupting everywhere. The only way to feel better about the state of the world is to stick your head in the sand and pretend none of this is even happening. You know what? I might have been too harsh earlier. Maybe AOC is really onto something. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. Contribute $1 or more per episode. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.